Reece, you scary man. I hope you don't mind me sharing a little bit about what we've just talked about in the dressing room. I think it's fair to say that you found that quite an upsetting experience, didn't you?
Yes, I did, very much so. No, I seriously did. As I said before the film was shown, I've not seen that for 2 years. It was made 24 years ago. I don't know what I expected when I came tonight. I just thought, I'll go and watch ID, it'd be great, and some nice people will talk. But actually, I found it disturbing. Not least because I was 24 years younger and 2 stone lighter, but it's like, I seriously found it disturbing, and I didn't expect that. Weird. It was just so very much more than I remembered. The 34-year-old man who made that and the 58-year-old man who sits here, I don't recognise that performer. That's weird. It's just very strange. Sorry, I sound very old.
No, you have. I'll share a little bit. You have been genuinely quite disturbed backstage at the reaction that you've had. And I'm fortunate enough to have got to see you on stage. I've seen you play Alan Bennett, for goodness sake. I know about your work as a director. So let's just talk about it as a performance, because it's had that effect on you. It had that effect on me as a teenager. Again, when I watched it this week, I was astounded. You lost yourself in that performance. Do you remember losing yourself quite so much?
It's weird, you know.
Go on, John.
For the first time ever, they asked me to do a job on it, which was what you would call a method job. I don't normally work like that. I work in all sorts of different ways and all sorts of different projects with different characters. But with that one specifically, because I was a northern guy and they were all Londoners, and the specific nature of the role, they asked me to immerse myself, submerge myself into the part. And so we spent weeks and weeks on end. Phil and I, the director and I, spent weeks just one-to-one working on the character, building up a profile. I mean, I literally wrote a book, you know, a pad, A4 pad with 70 or 80 pages on this character's life. I went and visited schools and houses in southeast London and playgrounds where he might have spent his youth, and built a whole picture of who his dad was and his parents and things. So I did submerge myself into this part more than any other role I've probably ever played, and I remember they asked me to speak with a London accent from dawn till dusk. When the driver picked me up in the morning, I had to talk to him in a London accent. I had to speak to all the other actors in a London accent. I had to get my food at lunchtime with a Cockney accent, and so I really did delve in there. And I just thought that now maybe I wasn't aware of it as Reece. Maybe I was more John for that 7 or 8, 9 weeks, whatever it took me to do this, than I was Reece, than I've been Reece for any other part. Is this making any sense?
Yeah, well, I think
we love John.
You see, we might come to that point actually, but you see, as the movie progresses, it's almost like you physically change in the same way that I saw.
Well, they asked me to do that. Now I remember we talked about that, how to hold myself. So my centre of gravity became different as we went through the piece. It got lower around my gut. The more immersed in it became. At the beginning, he's all lighter and younger and things. Yeah, it was one of those method jobs, but I don't work like that really. I always work very hard, and I always do my homework, and there's a lot of technique and skills required for whatever role you're doing. But that's the only time I've really worked like that to that degree. And tonight I didn't know who he was. It's not me, if you know what I mean. Like you talked about Alan Bennett. I played Alan Bennett only 3 or 4 years ago. And it's still, I can feel that now, and I can understand Alan, and I was there, and I did submerge myself into him. But I recognise that, but I recognise who he is. I recognise me as Alan Bennett.
Mhm.
There, I don't know who that was. Somebody else.
That was John.
It was John. It certainly was John. Yes.
That's like watching A Stranger for you then.
It was a bit. Yes, and I haven't processed it yet, so that's why I'm a bit strange. Sorry about
Well, no, it's, and we talked about.
20 years on, John. That's
It's
that's
a while.
that's our crack,
It's,
isn't it?
it is. Yeah.
I'll keep calling you Reece. I'm not going to call you John.
John Reece is fine.
He's John to me.
It is, and this gentleman here, calling you John, you realise what a huge impact this movie has had. It had a massive impact on me. It's about, I think it's to do with the writer and director, the message of the movie. But you watching it, as someone who's a very thoughtful man, as I say, you're directing tomorrow. When you see the message of the movie, are you glad that it's something you've made, something you produced that's added to a conversation about violence and the dangerous nature of violence?
Yes, I think. I hesitate to say this, but I think the film can be has been looked at in the wrong way in some times. Some people have. I'm disappointed sometimes because I think that, for me, you'll all have your own views on it, but for me, the film is basically looking at violence as a kind of drug. I mean, it's kind of like saying it's like heroin. You know, let it get under your skin. Look what it can do. It destroys this man's life, really. And so I remember that horrifying me somewhat at the time, but I was a different person. Now it's killing me, that, because I look at that and I go, this is horrific.
You were squirming. I was sitting next to you, and you were squirming quite a lot. I
didn't realise how powerful it was in terms of its violence, its sexual violence. I didn't know that, so I don't know.
Quite a serious question. Do you still have a Shadwell tattoo on your bum?
Thank God it came off in the shower. Yes, no, I don't. Huddersfield Town when I got it. Sorry, chaps, whoever you supported it.
There is one question. I mean, it's the question that everyone walks away from this movie asking, and I'd love to know what you think. What happened to John? Is he still undercover?
No, I think he's gone, hasn't he? His brain's gone. He thinks he is, and the police have gone, get away. He's totally lost himself in it. So I think that's what the ending's saying, really.
And why did you think you could take on 50 Geordies on your own?
No idea.
It's hard, isn't it?
I'm so not. Actually, there's an old school friend in here tonight, Martin Craig somewhere, and he'll tell you I can't fight for Sofia. I mean, so soft as they come. No.
This was so. I think we'd seen you in Home to Roost already by the time you played this. So we had this idea of this lovely, gentle young man. I understand that you weren't the first choice for this role. There were a lot of people considered.
I was the first choice, but I wasn't the only actor considered. What happened? I shouldn't say names because these people are far more famous and better than I am. But
Can I say them?
Come on, John. Come on.
well, if this isn't, please believe me, this is not me bragging, but I'll tell you this. What it is that they wanted an actor who had all that in him, and there were certain actors who wanted it very badly, and the reason they didn't give it to them is because with those 2-3 actors, you would have known the ending. As soon as they started, you'd kind of go, we know where this is going to go. But I was the lad from Home to Roost, and they wouldn't see me for the part. And my agent kept badgering them and said, see Reece. And they said, well, he doesn't have that in him. He doesn't have that in him. So finally, because they couldn't find the right person, they saw me, and I thought, I'm going to give him it. So in the screen test, I just went berserk, really. And I remember the director and the producer just kind of pinned back against the wall going, what the hell have we got here? Because they just didn't realise, and that's what they wanted. They wanted the character to go from kind of, okay, cheeky chappy, but young copper, to being this guy who's completely lost on violence. And so, yeah, there were people in the frame, but I got it, so there you go.
Big Hollywood names, and he was much better.
Who was in the frame?
No, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Right after.
I'm sure.
Denzel Washington.
Yeah,
We see the director, don't we? We see the director very briefly.
Phil comes in as a sergeant who walks in through the door and tells them to keep the noise down. He directed it.
And
Well,
everybody
very famous.
apologises in that scene apart from John.
Yes.
I think it's an incredible movie, and I know that you're disturbed by it, and I think it's quite good that you're disturbed by it, because it's a disturbing movie. I said this at the beginning, the reason it's so disturbing is because of your central performance. It's an amazing performance.
Thank you.
And I think the film's incredible. So, we don't have a mic or anything, but I'm sure we can hear. If anyone wants to ask a question, if you... Okay, great. Let's start with that. Yep.
Okay. What research did you do into being a football hooligan, if any? The film is based on the book by James Bannon,
Yeah.
who infiltrated the Millwall firm.
Yeah.
Did you meet him? Did you speak to him? Did you do
Yeah.
any sort of research into being a boy?
It was around us at the time, wasn't it? You know, the 80s. It was all over the
Dangerous
place.
game going to
You
football
know,
in the 80s, dude.
yeah, and young white men not knowing where to put their anger and...
You rocked up and you took what happened. So what research did you do?
Well, there were lots of books about it at the time, and I read every book going. Don't ask me now, 'cause it's 24 years ago, what they were. And I went to football. I've been going to football since the age of 7, 8.
Sound
in fact.
as me.
Yeah, and
Not football, right?
Sorry?
You've been watching others film, not football.
Okay, fair enough.
Let's leave the football advance till later.
But I've been around it, and it was there. I was born. I'm that old. In 1959. So at the end of, and I lived through it. We knew it. I've been to Huddersfield Town fans where it's mayhem around you. It's crazy on the back of the
Did you do
goals.
specific research at all into...
I didn't need to. My life was football. It still is. But my life was about going to football matches. We all saw it. I mean, if you were my age, you couldn't miss it. Any game you went to, home or away, it was there. It was in the air. I've seen it. I didn't need to do any research on that.
How close did you get to it as a football fan? How close did you get to violence?
Not at all. I don't. I avoid it.
Well, you've seen it when you're...
I've seen it. I've seen people who had the shit kicked out of them. It just happened, and it was horrific. I remember Portsmouth coming to Huddersfield. I used to stand on the open end at the back of the goals, and people got in with each other. There's no segregation, and it was just kicked off like that. And there was bodies everywhere, and I was just a young man. I was like, my God, get away! It's horrific, really. And thank God it's not as it was.
I think, did you, the chap in the hat?
Yeah, a couple of things, Reece. Good evening, first
Hi.
of all. One's quite disturbing, actually. I work for Cheryl Cole, and I have done for a long time, and it's actually a favourite movie.
Oh.
We used to watch it on tour.
Oh,
quite a
there
lot,
you go.
so I didn't know whether
Obviously.
you was aware of that. The other thing, did your agent get contacted about ID2?
Again, it's very hard because they asked me to be an ID2, and I didn't want to do it. I met them for it. I met the producer and director, and I just felt, forgive the pun, but I just felt let sleeping dogs lie, because sometimes you create something, piece of work, which you're proud of, and you can revisit it for the wrong reasons. I actually, personally, I've not seen the film, so I wouldn't judge the film, but I just felt I felt they were revisiting the film for the wrong reasons.
I'm not a critic, I can only have an opinion, but, the movie was lost without your character, so,
Okay, well, I just felt, why are they doing this? It was when they made it 2 or 3 years ago, I think. It's 2 years down the line. It's become a big seller in terms of DVDs and things, and it become this cult hit, which it wasn't at the time. It was made for cinema. We made it and it had a 2-week run. Didn't do great business, but it then built up head of steam post that, when the the VHS tapes came out, and it just sold in great numbers, and it became this cult hit, and in fact, it became a cult hit for kids who weren't born when it was made. I still get people who must be 20 years of age shouting forgive the language, but fucking love you gumbo at me as I walk down the street. You know, it's weird with that, isn't it? Or just odd. I forgot what your question was now.
We're not bothered, we just wanted to hear you say that.
Not no longer an accent, though,
Sorry,
eh?
I just wanted to thank you for making a classic, because I mean that is so intense.
Superb.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
And I will say that I have seen ID2, it's garbage, don't bother. That lady in the hat up there?
I thought you were absolutely brilliant in the film, but sidetracking here. It must have been an honour and a privilege for you to work with John Thorpe.
It was, yes.
And I thought he was a real favourite of mine. Has his acting influenced you in any way, or?
No, his acting as such, but the man did, I suppose. I mean,
The man,
first
yes.
of all, it was weird because I used to watch. My dad let me used to stay up and watch the Sweeney when I was a kid. So when I went to drama school, and they came out of drama school, I'd done a couple of years, and they said, "Do you want to do this sitcom?" And I was thought, "I'm a proper actor. I'm not doing a sitcom." And then they said, "But it's with John Thorpe. It's a two-hander." I'm going, "Yes, okay. Then we'll have a bit of that, you know." And John and I, we got on very, very well. We had to, because it wouldn't have worked if we hadn't, and we hadn't got a bit of faith, a bit of trust in each other, a bit of respect. So I was just honoured to be with John in such a close fashion. And he always said to me, always keep coming out of a different corner, always keep them guessing, is what he told me. And that's what I tried to do, and I think I have.
You definitely did that with ID.
Yeah, from Home to Roost to ID is a bit silly, really.
Thanks for the question, that's great. I'm going to go to the guys just behind you and then come to you.
You still look about 30 odd years.
I don't know. I wish I was 30 years old.
I couldn't believe you were 34 when you filmed that. You was 34
Yeah,
in
34.
ID. Amazing.
In 1994, that is 24 years ago, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
First of all, I just want to say what a down-to-earth top guy Reece is from speaking on Twitter.
Sorry about that. I've only been on it a year.
Yeah, you're an absolute down-to-earth top man, even though you're having an Huddersfield fan. But what I want to ask is, which was the most difficult part? Playing John from ID or playing David Platt's stepdad?
I don't think I'm going to go there.
Knowing that David Platt's a Leeds fan as well.
Yeah, we did have
How
a
did
bit
you
of
deal
banter
with
about
that?
that.
How did you deal with that, Reece?
Okay.
Do you have to find something different in each role that you play, Reece?
I'm not talking about that.
Did he give you any stick, Reece?
They tried.
I've got a question from the chap in the glasses. I'm going to go very quickly. Yes.
Hi, Reece.
Hi.
I just want to, Phil, who directed it, obviously a few years before, was in The Firm,
Yep.
another seminal
Yeah.
film.
Very, very good film.
How much of an impact was it that he has been in that film? I mean, the idea is far more intense than The Firm is. Despite having Gary Oldman in it. Did he bring a lot to the table from The Firm to take that forward?
Don't really know. It is interesting, isn't it, that he played Yeti, didn't he, in the film? I thought the film was great. I mean, Gary Oldman was a terrific actor, as we all know, so, you know, that's just a given. And he was brilliant in that. Phil, it's just, I don't know why he got that script and why he did it. And we didn't speak of The Firm. We didn't talk about The Firm. We didn't talk about Gary. It was our thing. I thought The Firm was ace. I've not watched a single football hooligan film apart from The Firm and ID. I've not seen Green Street, and I can't even name the others. It's not actually, ironically, it's not particularly a genre of film that I'm interested in, if I'm honest, now. Because you might say The Firm had said it. Why did we make ID? We made ID. But how do you keep going on unless you've got something to say about it? No, Phil didn't bring an awful lot there, and he didn't direct an awful lot after either. He did that, he did a couple of tellies, and then he said it wasn't for him.
brilliant actor, and what a great cast as well that we got to see.
Weird, it's like seeing, you know, now it's Gene Hunt playing one of the four, and, you know, there's some great people there.
Like, I still insist that the sergeant's miscast. He just doesn't.
You can spot him a mile off,
A
Richard,
mile
can't you?
off, a mile
The irony was he was one of my closest friends in real life. He got the part of the sergeant, so we were good together.
I'm going to go at the back there and then come down to you.
What was the budget on it, Reece?
There's a story there about that guy who plays the sergeant, Richard Graham. He went on to do Titanic. He was there forever. I don't know where they shot it, somewhere like New Mexico or something like that. And he rang me and he said, "Reece, the bottled water budget on the film for the crew and the cast and everything is more than our film." So I could be wrong, but I remember back then in midst of time, it was £2 million to make ID, I think, and the bottled water on Titanic was £2 million.
The stadium at the end.
Yes.
Was that film water?
No, we shot the film at various places, but basically the really violent stuff at the back of the goals was shot at Valley Parade when there were no seats in there, when it was the old cop. The one with the darting was at Rotherham, the old ground at Millmore.
Were they sort of took
But
it down the side as you went in? You know, like the
There's nothing at Millwall. The only thing we did in London was we started shooting at Bermondsey area, and the only thing then we went across the Lake Norrin to shoot the exterior. It's a fantastic shot, to be fair to Phil, where we're walking to the ground, the four of us talking, and it's one shot, and it's about 3 minutes long or something ridiculous. It's all done on Steadicam, and you just see the four boys, yada yada yada. And it goes on and on. And actually, I just took my hat off to him tonight when I saw that, because I thought, that is an excellent shot. And then I remembered it was like, if you messed up one single line, you know,
And it
what
was
a
football trivia as well.
yeah, it was, and you couldn't, and I think we must have done 3 or 4 or 5 takes. I don't remember quite, but we would have done a few. But that's, you know, you can only use one take.
I followed Sheffield United around everywhere, from being 15 years
Good
old,
on you.
late 70s. And the 2 most violent grounds I ever went to was Brentford
Right,
and Crystal Palace.
South London, well, west, well,
Most midweek
west.
games in London.
Yeah.
Yorkshire clubs.
It
I'm
was
going
quite a time,
I
wasn't
weren't
it?
there for the trouble, I just come across it.
Yeah,
to take this question.
No, seriously.
yeah. Yeah.
Can I just remind you as well, obviously, we want to talk about ID, but if Reece, as you can tell, is very happy to talk about anything. So if you want to talk about directing
absolutely.
or theatre, whatever it might be. I can see you waving, but you've had a question, so I'll keep going to people that haven't. Yes.
I've got 2 questions. First one is, can you remember anything from Tyneburn Market?
That's at Rotherham. I think that was Rotherham. We did that.
Is that where it was?
But
Is
I
that where
can't
you filmed
remember. That's where we filmed it. But no, like the character, I don't remember anything.
What's the idea then? The character John just blanks.
You're asking me now. I'll give you an answer, but I don't. It might not be true. Does he? Yes. I mean, it says a fatal stabbing, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
At the end of the film, which before the show tonight, I thought.
I thought that's what led you to getting a bit of coke on you. Cornflakes, like, I thought that might
Well, it might be just a obliterate whatever.
But who knows, that could have been a normal thing, who
Yeah.
knows.
Yeah. But I don't know.
And-
I didn't
and-
remember
and
that
the
he'd done. I
second-
didn't remember that he'd done that before the show. I said to
Really?
you, I said,
Oh, yeah, 'cause we
because it's
talked
in the
about
air,
it,
it's
yeah.
left in the air. Well, whatever happened at Tyneburn Market, I think. But actually, I was surprised to hear tonight
Yeah, yeah.
it was a fatal stabbing.
And second question was, do you think Huddersfield will stay up? I mean, I'm a Leeds fan and I personally hope to stay up.
Oh, that's very kind of it.
No, I do. I really would like you to stay up, but what do you think?
I do think we'll stay.
Still
up.
will.
I think,
Well, I think, I mean, I'm a Leeds fan, I've got a German connection. I think
there's a lot of hard.
You've
I
got-
think there's a lot of hard work to be done, without a shadow of a doubt. And if anybody thinks it's finished now, they're wrong. But I actually think, I thought from the start of the season, unless you're a town fan, you don't quite know what we've got there. It's extraordinary what we've got.
I think it's great. I see you tweeting and
Yeah.
I'm behind it. Me as a Yorkshire bloke, I'm behind it. I
Bless
think
you.
it's great.
Well, I just think David Wagner's been extraordinary, and I think Dean Hoyle is equally as extraordinary.
Yeah. Yeah.
And these and the spirit is phenomenal that's going on at Huddersfield Town. There's a lot of hard work, but I just think they'll get over the line.
I hope so. I hope so, mate. I hope so.
Right. Hopefully this won't be a football question. Yeah. Yeah.
Reece, just
Hi.
I'm conscious of moving on and the fact that you're directing on the new series of that.
Yeah.
But for me, being a stagey, when can we see you back on stage? Because
I don't know actually. I have no idea. I have no idea when I'm back stage screen. I don't know. I mean, it's been funny actually because I haven't been on screen for the last 5 years. But I've been on stage for the last 5 years, and hand in glove with that, I've been directing. And if I may allow myself to just big myself up for a second, I felt I'm in the best form of my life as an actor now.
Oh,
That's and what I've been doing in the last 5 and 6 years, Richard III, Alan Bennett, this house, you know, Master Builder, whatever it may be, I've just felt in my skin. I felt I'm finally in myself.
Yeah.
I know what I can do. I know how to do it. And I'm enjoying it enormously. I would love, I've been directing dramas, and I would love, because I'm learning every day as I direct drama, I would love to be able to now use what I can do on stage on screen again. It'll come round, it does. That's the nature of the business. It's just working that way at the moment. But I'm kind of waiting for it, because watching actors and learning, working with actors and speaking to actors and putting a camera on them, it's only by doing that I've realised what I've learned over all these years, what I've picked up. But now I'd like to start using it. We'll see. It'll.
Can I just state publicly, Reece, I am convinced that if the Master Builder had been on at the National, you would be sitting on an Olivier nomination this year. It was phenomenal.
Thank you. That's very kind. Thank you very much.
And also on the record, I have tried to write a part for Reece at the Playhouse, but they didn't want to commission me. I saw you had your hand up, sir.
Reece,
Hi.
hi. You're a very successful actor, director, telly, films, stage. What's your big ambition now? The big one?
To kiss Gail Platt again.
They never go back. I don't have one, and I think that's the beauty of being 58, is that I don't have to prove anything anymore. I've done my proving, I've done my thing, I've done my ambitious young man thing. I don't have that now. What I love doing is I love immersing myself in artistic endeavour. I love helping projects, telling stories, wherever it may be. In Halifax, at the Olivier stage, in London. I've done it all, but I've done that. I just want to tell stories, wherever. That's great. Me and Ian Paulson Davis there, fantastic actor, my best chum. We're writing a story. We've actually written it in this room, haven't we?
Yeah.
For weeks on end, we've been doing things here, and that's my ambition. Maybe to write a wonderful film. There you go.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
so
cool.
I'm going to take, all right, I'm going to take another 4 questions. You don't need to know, I'll take 4. We'll start with that lady at the back there.
Hi, Reece.
Hi.
When you started acting with Home to Roost, did you think you would ever go into directing?
No, it was just an opportunity that was afforded me. I played the central role in one of the Moving On stories. I don't know, some of you have seen Moving Ons and some of you haven't, but basically Jimmy McGovern, who is one of our best writers, was given a remit to revamp daytime television, and he came up with these the kind of old play for today's. They're like 45-minute single dramas. He does 5 a year, and they've become hugely successful. They're now on the 10th series, and on series 3, I played the main part in one of them, and they turned around to me and said, "You really should direct." And I thought, what? Why are you asking me? But I thought about it. I thought, I'd like to give it a go. So I did. So it came at me. I wasn't for years planning to be a director, but I've really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. And you get to play with brilliant actors, and whether they be famous, like Sue Johnston was in my last one, and Hayley Mills was in it, and Ken Cranham, or actors who I've just cast 3 actors in my next one, which I start tomorrow, and they're not household big star names like that, but they're brilliant, and that's what I love doing, is working with actors who are fantastic.
One of Reece's Moving Ons was called 18.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. If you can get it, it's a brilliant piece of TV. It really is. Yeah, and I'll come to you next.
Hi, Reece.
Hi.
I need to introduce myself. You were my first crush.
Oh dear.
Not from ID, right?
You didn't take me home, actually.
Oh, take me home, no. God.
Yeah,
I love doing Take Me Home.
Yeah,
That was great.
I can't actually get over myself. When I was in Berlin in the summer when it was announced, and I actually openly admitted on the Square Chapel
Did people go,
Facebook
who?
page that, oh my God, Reece Dinsdale was my first week. I think actually it was probably Home to
Was it?
But thank you for being here in my presence.
That's okay. I'm glad to be here.
As a 44-year-old woman, and we've been sat laughing, and I've actually thought I wouldn't say anything, but I felt quite rude because when that gentleman was saying, and you know, you're this and that, and I'm like, so thanks for taking me back to my 12-year-old self.
There you go.
You still got it, John.
I was about to say, is there a question? But I'm glad that you didn't ask one, because I don't think we need to know what your question is.
No, I don't need to know what my question is.
I'm going to come to you last. Yeah, that lady at the back.
Thank you. Hi, Reece.
Hi.
I just wondered, if you're playing characters that are quite a dark character, do you have to find something that you like about them, or to try and understand them? And do you have a favourite role?
Joe McIntyre.
Actually, it's funny you should say that because the part I've just played in The Master Builder was horrific part. But I loved playing it. I was glad to finish it because it was like I got just able to throw him away when I finished the whole thing because it was horrific. But you have to find something in the role that you know, you can't be judgmental of that character. You have to be that character. So, you know, they don't sit there necessarily, these characters, Richard III going, oh, Richard does know he's a bad bugger. Yeah. But you know, they generally bad people don't sit there going, I'm a bad bastard. You know, they are. And so you have to feel.
And he was quite a likeable character in The Master Builder. I was quite shocked as it progressed and you saw.
Well, that was the whole point, is to pull the rug from underneath you. Really, was that he was, in some ways, he was charming, and he was. What's ebullient mean?
Ebullient. It just means very full of life.
He was that. He was ebullient, and. Yeah, and then all of a sudden it starts slowly to crumble and turn, and you go, and then the audience go, "Oh my God, didn't see that," and you've done something. It's interesting.
Yes. Final question.
Thank you. A couple of these films have been remade. The Firm got remade by Nick Love, quite poorly in my opinion. If you were to remake ID as a director, who would you cast, and what would you change? And also...
Well, I wouldn't make ID as a director because it wouldn't interest me.
Can I have a part?
You can.
Thank you.
I wouldn't make it. It's not my type of thing. So I wouldn't make the film.
Have you watched remakes of things like this, like
No.
The Firm?
No.
It didn't go well. Would you remake that?
No.
Why?
It's not a genre of films that I would want to be interested in. I like small stories, little things, people's lives and loves and passions and.
And I would say, whatever Reece does next, honestly, his directing career is fantastic. I'm very excited to see what you're going to be writing with Ian. Although, frankly, there's a bit of competition there. Reece is a fantastic actor, and I think you said it. The great thing about getting to know Reece is that he's actually a really nice guy as well. And it's a real privilege to be here. Thank you for joining us for ID. I have one final question for you. You talk about wanting to do maybe getting back to screen, maybe taking everything you've learned. How about ID3? I'm joking. Ladies and gentlemen, he's brilliant, he's wonderful, Reece Dinsdale.